guys, welcome to chapter 9. This is probably the last chapter we're going to be able to do this year. We'll see where we get to, but that's kind of the plan. This first section is about chemical and physical changes, which I bet you've talked about before in other science classes, so hopefully a lot of this is a review. There's a few things that'll be a little bit new, but this shouldn't be too bad for you guys. So first thing we need to do is define chemical and physical changes. So, physical changes, for chemistry, for our definition, we're going to say they are a process where no bonds, like chemical bonds, are broken or formed. So in a lot of other science classes, they'll tell you that physical changes are changes that are reversible, that can be undone. And that's true, except for we learned that there's actually some chemical changes that are also reversible. So that's actually not the best definition. We want to go with this one. It's where we're not breaking or forming bonds. Okay, there's a few examples of physical changes that you want to be aware of. One of them is changes of state. So that's like going from a solid to a liquid, or a liquid to a gas. We call those processes melting, boiling, and condensing. So all of those are just physical changes. Okay. People don't often know that those are physical changes, but now you know. Another thing that's a physical change that people sometimes think is a chemical change is dissolving. So like dissolving salt in water. We also would call that making solutions. That's physical. If you dissolve salt in water, it's still salt and it's still water. They're just mixed together. It's a mixture. A couple easier ones. Physical deformation. That's a fancy way of saying like breaking things apart or tearing them up. So, of course, if you tear up a piece of paper, that's a physical change. Okay, let's talk about chemical changes now. Chemical changes are the opposite of physical changes. So they are changes where bonds are broken or formed. And again, we're talking about chemical bonds. And in science classes, we often talk about what evidences there are that can let you know that a chemical change is happening. So we're going to write down a few of those right now. So we're going to title this section, Evidences of Chemical Change. Okay, so first thing you can look for is a color change. So if something changes color, it's likely a chemical change. Not always, but likely. If heat or light is produced, like anything burning would be a chemical change. If there is a gas released, so like something is bubbling. Now again, this often is a chemical change, but not necessarily always. For example, this happens when you boil water, but we know that's a physical change. So the gas has to be like a new substance. So like baking soda and vinegar, that creates a gas, and it's something that's new. It's carbon dioxide. So that is a chemical change. If there's a new smell, that means new molecules are being produced. And then the last one is something we call the formation of a precipitate. And you are probably thinking about precipitation like rain. There's another definition for precipitate, and it is a solid that is formed by mixing two solutions. So sometimes you mix two clear liquids together and they turn cloudy, or they might even turn a color. That is forming a precipitate because they're forming little solid particles. Okay, so that's physical changes and chemical changes. We're just going to write down a couple of examples over here on page 86, and then we're going to be done. So on your homework, or I guess your assignment, you're going to be identifying whether changes are chemical or physical. So some of them, they'll just describe the change. Like they might say burning a log, and you'd say, well, that's chemical, and that would be because there's heat and light being produced. It's kind of an obvious one, but occasionally they will also give you a chemical formula, and you will have to decide whether it is a chemical or a physical change. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So if they give you this equation, if you look at that, think about whether you think that's a chemical or a physical change. So it turns out this is a chemical change, and here's why. We are breaking and forming bonds. See the bond between the carbon and the hydrogen? It is broken because over here on the other side of the reaction, the carbon is by itself and the hydrogen is by itself. And then new bonds are being formed too because each of these elements are bonding to oxygen. This is like the beginning of the reaction. This is like the end. We'll talk more about this later. But yeah, that is a chemical reaction. Okay, now let's look at something like this. Okay, so you'll notice there's these little letters that I've written down here. This is L, it stands for liquid, and this is G, it stands for gas. So this is water turning from a liquid to a gas, so it's evaporating or boiling, depending on the conditions. So, is this chemical or physical? Well, are any bonds broken? No. Are any bonds formed? No. So it's physical. And you probably should have already known that because I told you that changes of state are physical. So a reaction is only going to be physical if the left side is exactly the same as the right side. Makes it pretty easy. Okay, last example, and then I'll let you try this on your own. Okay, so we have two separate elements over here and they're combining, so they're forming a bond. So this is a chemical change because bonds are being formed. All right, that's it. So you should have all the tools you need to answer the questions. Hopefully that goes well for you. And next time we'll do a video lab about chemical and physical changes that will be more exciting than just taking notes. So, hope you guys have a good day, and I will be in communication with you.